Well, hello. This is, you've already been watching videos in January, but this is the first time I'm shooting since Christmas break. I'm feeling a little rusty, guys. I had to pause before I walked up and remember, like, what am I supposed to say? What am I doing? I'm Daniel Whittington. I'm the Chancellor at Wizard Academy and Whiskey Marketing School. We're going to try to drink some whiskey and talk about things. The topic of this video, oh, it's got a pour spout. Interesting. Oh, it's one of those. Okay. I wonder if I can get that out or if it's permanently in the bottle. Yeah. It's one of those ones that does the, like, predetermined shot things. That's so weird. Buchanan's. You're adorable. So in the Whiskey Vault Facebook group, specifically, I put in a post that just said, hey, what would you want to see if I was shooting videos and coming up with ideas? And Cal Seifert came up with this one specifically, and he basically wrote the video. And so I'm here shooting it because Kyle is somewhere else in the world. But really, I'm just going to bounce off of what could have been an entire video by Kyle Seifert. Because it was a great idea, and then he kind of explained it. He's like, I would love to see about this topic, for example, and then he wrote the whole thing. So this is a co-shoot between me and Kyle Seifert. He wrote this question that was, hey, maybe you should do a whiskey episode along the lines of the different levels of describing your experience when drinking whiskey, and he means based on how experienced you are at drinking whiskey and how you give tasting notes based on your different levels of knowledge and understanding of whiskey. And that is absolutely a thing. And it never occurred to me. So we talked about how you do tasting notes and in a previous video and like how you describe things and how I describe things. But one thing that keeps coming up in groups that I'm doing tastings with, and if you run tastings, it's always there, is this varying levels of experience with whiskey in a space. And so one person with a lot of experience will name these like 14 things they're picking up in a nuance, and then this other one will be like, smells like whiskey. And that has nothing to do with someone being good at smelling and someone being bad at smelling it. It's simply experience. And then he said, and this is what caught me, and it's, maybe it was pandering, Kyle, but it worked. So he said, for example, it's the same way that people can describe music. And his quote was, to go off the music metaphor, someone without music background can simply hear a song and say, I like that song. And that's the end of it. Or I don't really like that song. And that's kind of the end of it. The more you listen to music and the more you kind of get an understanding of different kinds of music and what you do and don't like, you might be able to take the next step, which is like, I really love the guitars in this song, or I really love the drums and the beat and the energy of this song, or I really love the vocals and the lyrics of this song, and here's why. And that's your kind of next level. And then when you start entering into I have a music experience, you can listen to a song and go, man, that guitar line is really bouncing off of that harmony, and that bass riff is really accenting the kick and how it lands on the chorus, and you can start to really pick out individual nuances of music in a song, and you can be moved by something that, like, oh, the reason I love this song is because when it lands on that bridge and it goes major and into a half step. I was doing this with my son in the car when we were driving 2 days ago. It's like, what I love about this chorus is it doesn't resolve on the one, anywhere in the chorus. It always starts on the 5, then hits the 6 minor, and then on the 3rd it goes into this like random for a second, settles into 1, and then goes back in. Anyway, super nerdy stuff, right? But he was like, oh, it sounds cool, and he knows this kind of stuff. But I've heard other people who are just like, I don't like that guy's voice, so that song sucks. And I'm like, well, I don't actually know if I really love the guy's voice as much either, but the songs are so good. If you weren't, and by the way, the band was Placebo, because I stumbled onto it when listening to music that I used to listen to back in the 2000s and 90s, and Placebo is an awesome band. and it was the song with, what was it? You don't care about us, oh. I can't remember the title of it right now. Anyway, I think the same thing happens with whiskey. My brain froze on music for a second. I think the same thing happens in whiskey, which is you get these sort of abilities of layers of talking about it, and not only talking about it, experiencing different things once you're able to recognize and understand patterns and repeated patterns that you've built in your head. So that's fine, but how does that affect you? Good to know, sure. Well, the answer is there's a few steps to this journey, and once you identify where you're at, then with a little practice, you know what's in front of you. And I'll tell you what I think those stages of that journey are. But first, Buchanan's. We're gonna drink Buchanan's Two Souls. This whiskey was a gift from Lizzie Mack, who's one of our whiskey sommeliers and a student at Wizard Academy. And I don't remember, she went out of her way to try to track this one down. I don't know if it's easily accessible here, or if it's in the Mexico market or whatever, but what it is blended Scotch, right? That's what Buchanan's is, blended Scotch, no age statement, finished in Don Julio tequila barrels. So what I'm always interested in these is when a budget blend, or really anybody, says this is a finish, I want to know, can you tell? Or is it just like you sort of did a nod towards something, but really it's just a 5% variation on your existing brand line, but you get to sell a new bottle and name it something fun. And so I really love when you can experience the impact of the thing they say. I actually really liked that about the Dewar's tequila barrels, is that it was like, oh yeah, you could tell that was different from the normal. I don't even remember if I liked it or not, but it was distinct. So, if you want to know about tasting notes, I'll tell you what my brain's already looking for, which is why I like to go in blind sometimes. My brain's already going to be looking for that note that I know is the aged agave impact that comes into tasting notes. Because I like mezcal and I like tequila, and a lot of people don't. It's got that really green, directional, heavy vegetal note covered in this really dense sweetness of agave. And that really hits people wrong in a lot of ways, but I really like it. It doesn't always pair well with whiskey, but when it does, it's really interesting. And it's there, full stop. Even on the first smell, that super agave note is floating, is right in there. It's maybe on the very top, like floating on the top of the glass. As a matter of fact, that's the first thing that I'm smelling, and I'm having to dig behind it to find Scotch. So they did not hold back on the impact of the tequila finishing. There we go. Now it's that was a strong smell with alcohol. Now it's starting to settle a little bit. It feels a little shiny. It definitely has that sweetness. I don't get any of the vegetal notes from agave, but I do get the sweetness of tequila. It's reminding me of a rum cask finished Scotch, where what mostly comes through for me is that metallic vanilla, but it's not metallic vanilla, it's the sweetened agave syrup direction. And my nose is fresh this morning. It's been a while since I shot these videos, guys. December was nuts. Oh. I don't know about that one. That one, the nose I really like. It's sort of soft. It's the nice gentle part of barley with a sort of coating of agave sweetness across it. The palate just sort of went all in on that sort of funky barley blended Scotch, and then took this hard right turn into tequila. And it's finishing with a tequila aftertaste, which I guess if you're going for like, this is finished in tequila barrels, I mean, we definitely got that. It's there. It's not joking. Still like the nose. Let's try that sip again. Okay. It must have just been that first sip. This bottle has been consumed a little bit already because it was brought during a whiskey class, and a lot of people tried it. I didn't. I was saving it for a video. I don't know. To me, this is really sweet. And by sweet, I don't mean like a dollop of sugar added. I mean like the sweetness of tequila and agave is really dominating this thing. I like a little bit more of the barley funk and earth to the scotch, even the blended scotches that I like. But if you like tequila and you're trying to gateway into whiskey, man, this would be a very solid bridge. Yeah, very simple, very sweet. Every sip, it gets more sweet and more tequila-y. It's okay. It's not bad. Now, man, I just gave a great example of beginner tasting notes on tequila. I intentionally drink tequila without a lot of research. I understand the process because I had to learn the process of tequila production when I was getting my WSET spirit certifications. But I try to just drink tequila like a consumer because I just don't have enough room in my head for a whole other category right now. I'm too tired of it, and I just want to enjoy it. And so I have just enough knowledge that I know if I go into a bar where I can order things I kind of like, but I have not developed my palate for agave spirits other than like, I kind of like this one. It's a little vegetal. Look at how simple this is. I kind of like that. It's got that cool guitar riff, right? But I've talked to tequila people and their tequila tasting notes are like way beyond my analysis of it. And again, because it doesn't have anything to do with nosing and tasting talent, it has to do with what patterns have you built. So that brings us back to the point, which is, and by the way, thank you, Kyle. Great idea for a video. I think I'm going to set up roughly 4 stages to progressing in your tasting palate from beginner to now you can talk about it knowledgeably and sort of analyze a whiskey. Level 1 is I like it or I don't. And by the way, these are all fine. You can live and stop at one of these. If you know what you like in whiskey, you know enough. The definition of good whiskey is whiskey you like the way you like to drink it. Stage 2, I like this one and it's different from this one in this way. And you may name 1 or 2 things where it's like, well, this one's a little more smoky than that one, or this one's a little bit more like that cherry note than that one. Hey, how do you get there? By drinking and writing things down and thinking about it. Hey, you've progressed. Level 3 is you are finding, I would argue, more than 2 or 3 tasting notes in each whiskey by itself, right? I get this, this, and this. Like if once you start hitting at least 3 tasting notes on a glass, you're starting to build all of these patterns in your head that you can re-reference when you get a new pour of whiskey. And level 4 is you are absolutely just sitting down, you're using tasting sheets, you're using references from old tastings, you're using tasting notes on the bottle, you're using tasting notes from food that you've eaten and other beverages you've consumed, and you're applying to those to try to recognize what you're drinking, and that's when you start getting into real deductive tasting. I would say, unless you plan on being a whiskey professional or you just are really nerdy, which is probably most of our people who are watching these videos, because that's us, right? But outside of our little circle, like there's no need to go beyond level 2 or 3 for most of the population. Analyze it a little, understand what you like, let it make you better at picking another thing you might also like, call it a day. But if this is your hobby and you've chosen this instead of something else, then by all means, nerd out. And don't be afraid to start in anything. I think that journey should be a fact for all whiskey consumers when you open a new bottle. The only question you should be asking yourself at first, before you turn on your analytical brain and put on your science hat or critic hat, is just, do I like it or not? Just always start there. Just always start there. Do I like it or not? Or is it meh, on a scale of 1 to 10, right? And that's fine. You can stop there. Nobody starts at level 4, just so you know. But, for example, for me, for this whiskey, I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's fine. What's it for? A really great bridge from tequila to scotch, if you wanted to make that journey. But regardless, good to see you in the new year. I'm really glad you're here. Cheers. Like a bridge from tequila over troubled waters, from tequila to scotch. Liking and subscribing brings you from an outside viewer to one of us.